Hi again then guys, and welcome to yet another high rollers circuit setup on GT Sport, and this one kind of rounds them all out now with the Jaguar XJ13. This was always one of the quickest high rollers. In fact, it might have even been the fastest overall if I recall correctly, at least on par with the Miura in GT6, around 260 miles per hour. It's not that quick now. And of course, as far as all of my high roller tunes go, I haven't actually leveled up the power or weight. I've just scrolled them as far as you can go without actually improving it. So the reason why I've done that is, for one thing, it costs a huge amount of mileage points, and I don't particularly care to upgrade it. But for those of you who would like to, the advantage is this tune shows you what it can do basically at its worst, in effect. So if you upgrade it, it'll be even better. Now, as far as the upgrades, or the settings themselves I should say, we've got traction control turned off as usual. That's down to you, of course. Again, racing hards as we usually do, to show what it can do in most circumstances. If you put it on mediums, put it on softs, of course you'll see improvements there. As far as the suspension, we've dropped the ride height just a little bit to 70mm. As far as the frequency, we've got 2.95 on the front and the back. Anti-roll on 5, likewise again, front and rear. As far as the dampers, for compression we've got 57, 85 for the rebound, no camber, no toe on this one. Downforce is adjustable, which is pretty nice. I've got it as low as possible because we are on Le Mans, and many people will probably use it on Le Mans for the classic events. If of course you take it on a different track, you will want to potentially increase that to sacrifice some top end speed but improve your grip through the corners. As far as the diff, this is the kind of car which I think some people will want to change up quite a bit, because the handling is fairly heavy naturally, but it can sometimes flick its tail out kind of unexpectedly. It's not like the 250 GTO where you kind of expect it slides around quite a bit. This one doesn't do that. It's more like the GT, or the GT40 I should say, or the Mark IV, where it's fairly heavy most of the time. So I've gone for the lowest initial torque and acceleration, and then just to loosen it up a bit going into corners, the highest braking sensitivity. But as I said, it will definitely vary from person to person as to what you personally like. So as far as finally the gearbox, as I've said with pretty much all of these, if you do increase the power or decrease the power, why you'd want to I don't know, but theoretically you will need to adjust the gears accordingly. If you do what I've done, then I would recommend 2.3 for first gear, and incidentally an auto setting of 224 miles per hour, of course. Then, as I said, 2.3 for first, 1525 for second, then 1060, 800 and 615 with a final drive of 4.2. And that's good enough with what I've done to give you a top speed of about 212 miles per hour, with some room for slipstream as well. So pretty good all round. It's a little bit quicker than most of the other high rollers, so that's a pretty good start. But of course, to show what it can actually do, let's take it out to the Le Mans to see what kind of laps it can run. Now, as I said, the Jag was always a great straight line high roller, a great classic in general in GT6 regardless of price, extremely fast in a straight line, but also very good through corners as well, with a notably different handling signature to a number of the others. It felt more controlled, almost ahead of its time in some ways, which, at least as far as the game goes, makes it quite a shame that it never actually did race. Now, as far as in GT Sport, it doesn't have that massive top speed advantage anymore, although it can still comfortably outrun the Daytona and the 250 GTO. As far as the Mark IV and the P4, they're pretty well matched. You can get around 205, 210 out of all three of those. This one at 212 potentially gives you a little bit of an advantage there as well. But in terms of its lap, you're looking at around a 334. So not as quick as you might hope given that top speed. But the reason why is because, for one thing, it's much heavier than the Ferrari P4, and the speed that Ferrari can get through the corners gives it such a huge advantage. So in other words, in terms of all of the high rollers so far, the Ferrari is essentially the best all round. It's got the straight line speed of the Jaguar or the Ford, but the cornering ability to take on stuff like the GTO or the Daytona. Personally, it's still not my favourite, but it kind of feels the most like a modern prototype out of all of them, whereas this one, the Ford, they feel more like what they are, classics, whereas the Ferrari feels a little bit ahead of its time, although personally I do prefer this Jag. Overall though, they can all give you plenty of victories, and of course, if you do decide to use this tune, I hope it gives you just that, a lot of fun and a lot of victories, and potentially earn a lot of cash with it as well. But that's it for this pick. Of course, you can click through on screen right here to see all of my other tunes, including for the Ferrari, the Ford, the Daytona, etc. And for now, as always, thanks for watching.